Ekaro, everyone. Thank you again for joining our Orisha Devotion webinar today. It is our sincerest prayer and wish that the wisdom of Obatala, of Olokun, and Ifa, and all the Orisha will continue to enhance your existence in remarkable ways. Please share this invitation with your friends, family, close ones, and loved ones, and invite them to become a part of our Orisha spiritual assembly. We promise to inspire you weekly with the wisdom of Obatala, Olokun, Ifa, Eshu, and all of the other Orisha. Let's start today, as we normally do, with an invocation to Obatala. Biu kule le bowa getting ajija. Mafajija jemole getting ajija. Biarunle mi bowa getting ajija. Mafajija jemole getting ajija. Biofunle mi bowa getting ajija. Mafajija jemole getting ajija. Biajogun bobo inle mi bowa getting ajija. Mafajija jemole getting ajija. Translation loosely goes as follows. If death is chasing me and coming towards me, getting ajija, I will use my ajija, which is the ada osha, to knock it to the ground, getting ajija. If disease is chasing me and coming towards me, getting ajija, I will use my ajija to knock it down to the ground, getting ajija. If loss is coming, if loss is chasing me, coming towards me, getting ajija, I will use my ajija to knock it to the ground, getting ajija. If all of the ajogun are chasing me and coming towards me, getting ajija, I will use my ajija. It will knock it to the ground, getting ajija. Before we get started, and yes, excuse me, it is a late night typo. So of course we're not on devotion 343. We are on devotion 345. So please excuse me for that typo. So as we are moving along, as I stated in the last devotion that I was honored and blessed to facilitate, is that I wanted to continue a series on shishifun, and shishifun is this white clay that you see that's illustrated in the background. And as we are becoming more aware of the culture and going on to our each um, respective paths, regardless on our path that we take in the Orisha tradition, I feel like that Iwakwele, Iwarere, that type of ethical character mandate is obligatory um, as we move forward in our culture. And of course, we know Iwakwele like the back of our term, like the back of our hands. We know that good character is our religion. But I want us to start to think deeply and more philosophically about what does it actually mean to practice Iwakwele. Now, we may not have something that's direct, like, I guess in the Western tradition, how they have like the 10 Commandments. Sometimes in the Kamal tradition, people try to make the 42 laws of Ma'at as a 42 commandments, but that's not the case. They're actually 42 invocations. But sometimes individuals look for a quick bullet point of, okay, what are the ethical mandates, or what is required of me, or what should one do in ethical dilemmas. So when we're speaking about sheshefun and we're speaking about purity, we are considering ethical, moral, and holistic purity. Something to note is when we are speaking about Orisha, as we all know, that Orisha are not necessarily akin to gods and goddess. Rather, they are a conscious spirit force and a conscious spirit's intelligence that possess a specific force in nature. And each has their own function and their own behavioral pattern. So you can't reduce a deity to the deity of this and the deity of that. And the moment that happens is we're going to miss a lot on what these deities actually do, because they don't govern just one thing, but it's a particular like behavioral pattern, or a specific vibration um, that they oversee. And typically, Obatala is grossly misunderstood or misconstrued, and they misconstrue purity as pacifism, or purity as nonviolence, or purity as being non-objective. And of course, that is not the truth. Now, Obatala is the epitome of purity, but if you read the Oshapipe, or come across the Oshapipe rather, which is Obatala's own invocation, liturgy, his praise poetry, several times will you hear Obatala being named as someone as a warmonger. And actually, it's said that when all hope is lost and when individuals are engaged in a righteous war, that you go to war in Obatala's name. Now, to most, this may seem as a oxymoron. How do you have someone who's pure, but yet how do you have someone who's a warmonger at that same time? But let us consider this. Now, let's say if you get in an accident, or Risha willing, or hypothetically, let's say a person gets into an accident and the skin is lacerated and is introduced to malevolent bacteria or chemicals, etc. Now, when you place antiseptic, something that is scrupulously pure by definition, and yet it prevents the growth of disease causing microorganisms. But when you introduce this purification agent, it's not soft, it's not gentle, it's something that's going to hurt. And for an example, if something goes against homeostasis or something goes against order, this antiseptic is a regulator, and it regulates other entities to ensure that homeostasis, health, natural law, and order um, thrives inside of the organism. And of course, we know this law and order as the Orisha Odun. There is spiritual law and there's spiritual order, so to speak. So um, let no one lead you astray to convince you that there is no law or there's no order. Some people believe that there's nothing going to happen to one after the end of life, that you die and that's it. But there is a standard that individual will be judged on, and there are clear set of laws that are defined as ethical or unethical, right or wrong, nonetheless. So when I'm thinking about what is an important attribute or important characteristic trait of Iwakwele, specifically Sheshefun, to being pure, the one that reigns supreme to me is self-love. I'm not saying that this is the most important, but I think it's pretty high up there. And I want to be clear when we're speaking about self-love. And I mean this in a sense to where it's different from physical love. And at times from what is being portrayed, or sometimes that I see or people share with me, I think there's a borderline, a very thin borderline between self-love or quote unquote self-lust. Now, I can understand when one would want to attend to the physical side, such as pampering or grooming, vacations, sensual things, the aesthetics. I understand that. And I think it is a one side to a two-sided coin. But yet, we of course know that there could be relations that we would have with other people who would claim or say that one quote unquote loves another person, but solely in the physical, but really not have the best holistic intentions. But when we're speaking about self-love, it's something a little more that's being misunderstood. And yes, it is vital for the relationship that we have with ourselves, sets the tone to how other people will treat you and what relations will magnetize to you. So, of course, during my devotions, I love to give a little hidden occult gems. And this is another occult gem for you all today, is that people in situations and all interactions are mirrors that only reflect the internal belief that one holds with themselves. Now, toxic spirituality will have people to blame other folks. They will start this battle of individuals. They'll start a battle of the sexes. They'll start this battle between Black men and Black women, that's all made by design. And they would constantly have us to war with ourselves when certain things happen. And people come to you, they really reflect the beliefs that you feel that are true. And to change your situation, you must change your vibration. And this is law. There's no one to blame. We are responsible 100% of what happens to us in our lives. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow. And so, yes, that self-love, the way that we treat ourselves is going to reflect on what individuals come to us. Lastly, I'll say before moving forward is that I fully disagree with I think it's a new age notion to where they say the Black man is God and the Black woman is goddess. I fully disagree with that. For one, we know in the Orisha or African, the collective African traditional expression that there is no such thing as God. Yet, if we choose to, we are a vessel of a deity that we devote our lives to. And we are supposed to replicate that specific spirit intelligence and that specific spirit force in reality. So while we're walking in that purpose, if anything interferes with that purpose, you don't turn the other cheek, you don't let it slide, you don't hold your tongue, you don't become afraid of confrontation, you don't become, a lack of better words, just being afraid and scared to when you know what you are experiencing is wrong. So when we're speaking about self-love, in essence, I want you all to think about self-respect. Self-love is really preserving the whole. Self-love to me is realizing that you are one, a vessel of your Ori Anu, which is a divine vehicle. You are the vessel of the deities of your maternal and paternal ancestral clan, and you are a vessel of a deity that chose to possess your life. And the way that we act should be with the intention that we are preserving the deities inside of us and making sure that their will exists in reality. And if anything starts to impede on that, or if anything goes against that, stops it, gets in your way, if anything acts as an ajogun, which is to stop natural order, you have to preserve yourself, you have to love yourself, you have to respect yourself to be sure that that will of the deity is the will that will exist and not the will of the ajogun. And I think this is something that's misunderstood when we're speaking about purity, and we're speaking about Obatala and how Obatala is pure, but Obatala is not a pacifist. Obatala is the one that will fight to ensure that purity has its day. There's a essay from Oshefun, and this essay, I'm sure that you all have went over previously. And this speaks about this confrontation between Obatala and Eshu. And it is an ongoing confrontation. Now, it's interesting to note, and those in the 16 Kari class will go over this quote, we'll go over this essay briefly. But it's interesting to know the origin story of Eshu and how Obatala had a major role to play in Eshu's origin story. But nonetheless, most see Obatala of his previous failure, one failure nonetheless, but they hold that to him and question his ability to lead. But there's a really occult meaning behind this interaction between Obatala and Eshu, and this is actually recorded as the same rivalry between Asar and Set and Kemet and Knesset, for they're the same deities that were being worshipped in that expression. So nonetheless, Obatala is respected as the leader. He has the praise name Obatarisha, which means the Oba of all the deities. And Eshu, as we know, is the universal messenger. He is responsible for keeping up order, and he's responsible of communicating the ashe to the different entities that need to receive it. So he has a large role in order to play as well as Obatala. So one day, Eshu was not happy with the situation. They usually go to these meetings with the other deities, and Eshu was wondering, why is this old man regarded as a leader? I do more work to him on a day-to-day basis from his perspective, right? And they were having this meeting and they were going on with their normal agenda. And Eshu got up and says, I'm getting tired of all of this. It's like, why are you the leader? Like, who are you to say that you're the leader of all of us? And people are trying to, shush Eshu, like, man, be quiet, be quiet. He's like, no, 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 I'm not going to be quiet. And so Obatala said, if you got something to say, like, let him speak. Go ahead and speak. And then Eshu says, I'm not going to say anything more about this. I should not be, I guess, subservient to you. You should not be the leader. And so Obatala said, well, do you think that you are more powerful than I am? And Eshu says, yes, yes, I am. And he said, okay, well, in a few days' time, let's demonstrate our power and we'll see who's stronger than who. And Eshu, as we know, always have these powerful charms and amulets in his arsenal. And he did not back down from this challenge with Obatala. And so before they went, they both were, of course, they sought divination. Obatala did the divination and he did his ebo. Eshu went for his divination as well. And it said that you need to stop before you become ridiculed by Obatala. So Eshu said to the diviner, he's like, what are you talking about? Don't you see all of these charms and you see all of this magic here? And what does this old man have, that he's going to do? Like this old weak man. It's like, I'm not hearing this ebo. I'm not going to do it. So they arrived on that set day and, they went ahead and started demonstrating their ashe and their power. So Eshu said, you can do whatever you like. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm more powerful than you, do what you want. So Obatala went to Eshu and smacked him on the back of his head. And Eshu became a little baby. And he was crying and reaping and just, carrying on like a little baby. And everyone was, laughing, clowning Eshu and just laughing at this spectacle. And a couple of minutes in Eshu just shook it over and he said, okay, is that all you got? That, is that the best that you have to offer? Like, that was weak. So Obatala gave Eshu, I'm sorry, the first time he gave him a smack on the backside. This time Obatala gave Eshu a smack on the back of the head, and he became a dwarf to where his head was substantially bigger than his body. And he was out there walking all over the place, unbalanced and tipping over. And again, people were laughing at Eshu and, just laughing at this spectacle. And then Eshu, around his neck, he always carries those little small calabashes, a little small ado. So we took out the ado and he pointed it at Obatala, and Obatala became as white as an albino, just completely white. And everybody was laughing and looking at Obatala. I was like, look, you're a white man and, you're white as an albino. And then seeing that, Obatala said, give me that ado, give it here. And he took it and he turned it towards Eshu. And then Eshu was walking around lost, like he didn't know anything, like he was completely absent-minded. Nonetheless, and at the end of this essay, Obatala had exerted his authority. So there's a whole lot of hidden gems and a lot of great philosophical points that's marked in this essay that I wish I had the time to go into. Nonetheless, Obatala did not walk away, I guess, from this challenge. And even though people may see this as being childish, but it's a certain type of respect for oneself, a certain type of love, and a certain type of integrity that one will hold with themselves. Now, with me, up until probably, like, I want to say up until 5 months ago, I had this disease, and I call it the disease to please, right? The people pleasing idea, to where, one would constantly think about, what others may think. When you, I guess, will go out of your way to promote other folks or be so agreeable to make sure that, that you're not you're not ruffling the feathers, and, you're not getting on anyone's bad side and stuff like that. But to me, it's that, when you have this self-respect for yourself, it's like you have to enforce boundaries, and you have to make sure that, individuals do not try to bully you, that people don't try to control you, or folks don't try to manipulate you or go against your will. And to me, like, that is the epitome of self-love. Now, this is why Obatala is a good reason to why he's the regulator, why he's the authority, or the Oba of all the Orisha. It's sometimes when you have, I would say, the advice that you give to others, it's an advice that you must take yourself. And sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow. And to me, as a counselor previously, is that it became very difficult once individuals would confide their difficulties in you. And I became, privy of a couple of things. And of course, this was years ago. But when I was going through a hardship myself, or going through difficulties, I know that, if I'm leading someone in the direction, you got to take the advice that you give other people. And you cannot be afraid to address any type of confrontation just because, you want to be on the good side, and you don't want to, ruffle individuals' feathers, so to speak. There are things that will stop one from achieving their incarnation objective. And you cannot say you truly love yourself if you allow other things to disrespect you, harm you, or stop your essence from coming into reality. Now, I think with my generation, we have been misunderstood as being lazy or being a complainer, or, these millennials are this and millennials are that. But I'm starting to see it from another perspective. And I think that individuals are starting to advocate for themselves, and they're not really tolerating injustices. So I became aware of this term called quiet quitting, to where it's a type of civil disobedience at work. And there are individuals who will not go over and do above and beyond for these corporations that do not honor them, that have them working 2 to 3 positions simultaneously with barely suitable pay for 2022. There's another term that I became aware of as well, called overwork, to where individuals are taking 2 remote jobs simultaneously to make the ends meet. And the pay is deplorable, and it does not reflect the price of living for one job, so to speak. And especially when they speak about the student loans forgiveness, there's an assumption that this generation is lazy, that you all are taking loans that you don't want to pay back. But nonetheless, this is not the same generation of my mother and my father. Now, people are not failing to go for this college plan, which seems sometimes as economic slavery. Now, there can be the price of tuition, where the interest is more than the principal. Then you have jobs that can barely meet the rate of pay, and then individuals are trapped in this cycle, continuing to pay interest, working for 40 years to pay off a debt, to retire for 30 years and try to live with meager investments, and hoping that one's money, that one will not outlive their money. So it's a different type of self-respect, to where people are not going for that anymore. And it's people who are actually setting standards that they want to have a quality of life that's worth the respect that they deserve. Now, as we mentioned before in Ejila Shebora, to where Obatala and Yemu left Orun and continued to build civilization in Aye, these two are the founders of society. So I feel that self-love, for an example, is knowing that certain institutions or certain entertainment is grooming children in inappropriate ways, is building something new, building new programs so that children can grow and develop in a healthy way. I feel that self-love is knowing that the education is building insufficient institutions, is building our own institutions, to where we're looking out for the welfare of our community, to where people can thrive and build healthy identities and continue to work trades and occupations that we hold, that we can pass down in our community. I feel that self-love is not code switching. It's being comfortable in your own vernacular, comfortable in the way that you want to dress, and naming yourself by your own culture and not submitting to racist institutions. Self-love is not changing your name because you're afraid that you won't get a job. Self-love is not doing something to you aesthetically to be accepted by another job. Self-love is about loving yourself, loving your culture, and being who you want to be, and not letting other people change you. If you can speak for yourself and you can let your culture speak for yourself without feeling like you have to become someone different. In another essay, Ochura D, this is a story about Obatala, and it's a very epic story on how Obatala invited other animals to join this club. So Obatala understood many different languages, and Orumila was another person who joined this club as well. So before they went out to play, or they called this meeting, the elephant, Obatala, and the buffalo all divine to make sure they can carry out their duties well. So they had this meeting at the rock called Agba or Rishala, and this is where they discuss all of their affairs. And for some reason, the animals ignore their sacrifices. So one day they went out for this meeting, and they wanted to play a game afterwards. So I forgot this name of this game doesn't translate into English well, and I don't know what the sport entailed, but it did revolve each one to go off and start running and doing something physical. So the elephant went off and ran, no problem. The buffalo went out and ran, no problem. Orumila went out to ran, no problem. But when Obatala went to run, he slipped and he fell and he busted his teeth on this rock, and he was horribly injured. And so the animals went to give him first aid, and the elephant said that he's going to take a tooth out of his mouth and he's going to cut it down and give Obatala his teeth. And so Obatala was gracious, and he promised, do not tell anybody our secret, because it will be embarrassing if people know I'm coming home with a missing tooth. And so Obatala asked them and warned them, please keep my secret. Do not reveal this to anybody. Don't reveal this to your family. Don't reveal this to your wives or anything like that. And they all agreed and thought, okay, it was no problem, right? So as soon as the elephant got home, he went to his wife and he said, hey, do you notice anything different about me? And his wife was like, what are you talking about? And he was, he kept on joking. He's like, what do you see? You don't notice anything about me? And she was like, no. And then the elephant, he said, well, you don't see my tooth missing out of my mouth. And the wife said, oh, yeah. I thought something was wrong. And the elephant went on and said, oh, well, old man Obatala, he was injured in this game today. And, his teeth came out and I had to give him mine. And so the wife replied, you should not have done that. That is not our problem. And so the elephant replied, well, it's our shame. Our king can't be out here without teeth. So that was the end of that. The buffalo arrives home and he told his wife what happened. Orumila was the only one who refused to say anything to anybody. So the elephant had broken his taboo and his conscience worried him. And he went to go and confess to Orumila what he did. And so when he told Orumila, of course, they went in divine to see how they can neutralize the situation. And then the same thing with the buffalo. But yet when he went to confess to Orumila, when he was speaking, Orumila was married to Abba at this time. And she said, I want to know what's going on there. And Orumila said nothing, like, don't worry about it. I'm just settling a quarrel. It's nothing big. And Abba said, well, I already heard what happened. And, I heard that your old man Obatala, broke his teeth, and, this elephant had to give him his teeth. And so Orumila begged her, like, please, you cannot tell anybody in the town. You cannot say nothing to nobody. So the next day, there was a drought. And of course, Obatala's main, or I would say his principal or most loved wife is Yamu. So Yamu goes out to the water, either a lake or a river, and Yamu is responsible for getting the water so that Obatala can make clay for the heads of the new babies. So as Yamu was getting water for Obatala, she saw a spear, and Spear was the wife of the elephant. And when they arrived there, she wanted to jump in line. And Yamu stated, no, hold on, wait, you have to wait your turn. And the Spear says, you're supposed to give me respect. And if anything, if you fetched any water, you need to give it to me. And Yamu was, I guess, shocked, appalled, and felt kind of disrespected. So she's like, what are you talking about? Or who are you? And the spirit said, oh, I don't know. Why don't you go ask your husband? Um, and Yamu was still puzzled about, what this woman was talking about. And Spirit continued to say, Obatala would have never gone out if it wasn't for her husband. He would have died of shame. And Yamu asked, well, what did my husband take from your husband? Spirit said, don't ask me, go ask your husband. So when Yamu got home, she asked Obatala, what was the matter? And then Obatala explained what happened at this game they were playing, and that, the elephant swore not to reveal his secret. They actually made an oath. And in a ritual aspect, an oath is something really big. So sometimes people take sand or dirt from the earth and they drink it and they say something. And if you go against what you say, something bad can happen. We all know 16 Kari diviners and Ifa diviners. When you open the way, you touch the ground and you make an oath to the earth to be sure that to ensure that you're not doing anything malevolent. So oaths are not something small to be taken lightly in our culture. So again, Obatala said we made an oath that he wasn't going to say anything. So Obatala was so enraged that he went and took his afoshe and he went to the house of the elephant. And so he said, elephant, our secret was revealed by you today. That woman is going to cause your death, speaking about his wife. He went to the buffalo's house and said the same. Like, we made an oath, and you leaked our secret. Your wife abused me, with her words, and that woman is going to be the cause of your death. Orunmila had already suspected that something was going to happen. So Orunmila consulted Ifa, and Ifa told Orunmila to make sacrifices of a lot of snails and a lot of water. So when Obatala came to Orumila's house and Obatala went to confront him, and this is another occult, gem here, that Orunmila gave Obatala a lot of cold snail water to drink. And when Obatala drank it, he became calm and quiet. And so, his anger was suppressed. So Obatala went and warned Abba, his wife, to pack her things and that she needs to go. Obatala went to the elephant and they planned to use all the teeth from the elephant and all of the bones from the elephant. And so now hunters use the spear to kill the elephant. And so Obatala asked the hunter to remove all of the teeth and all of the bones from the elephant to use them as bangles and as ornaments. And this is why it's mandatory for any Obatala icon to have elephant pieces in it. And so now, since the spear had shared the secret of Obatala, the spear is what was always used to kill the elephant. And Obatala commanded the spear to be used, which is the wife of the elephant, to be used in its killing. Polo was the wife of the buffalo, and it's a trap. And to this day, it's the trap that is used to kill buffalo over what had happened here in this essay. Abba was supposed to be the cause of death of Orunmila, but Abba was removed from the house of Orunmila, and he gave thanks because of Ifa's valuable lesson. So this story is packed with a gang of hidden gems. I also think that Abba is the talisman that Obatala now carries. Abba is a talisman, to my understanding. I don't know if it's real or not, or it's philosophical, but it's the occult power to know anything at any time. So this story teaches you that Obatala's icon is actually one of self-respect and self-advocacy. Self-love might be difficult for those who are empathic, those who are altruistic, but one cannot constantly put the needs of others beyond oneself, and one has to take care of themselves to ensure that the will of your deity lives. Self-love and self-respect, it is the presence of, I guess, a personal type of integrity. And this self-love shows up in many ways. We all know Obatala's story on how he was briefly enabled to create due to being drunk. off of alcohol. So for Obatala devotees, that self-love is not polluting yourself with drugs, not polluting yourself with alcohol. For those who are not initiated to Obatala, I suppose not having imbalances with alcohol. Of course, other people can drink and that's fine, but it's a certain type of balance that shows the self-love and self-respect for oneself. For we know certain type of drugs and alcohol and things could compromise one's life expectancy significantly. Self-love is advocating for yourself, advocating for your pay with human resources, or taking a break, or needing to get up and walk away from the computer when walking long hours, or even walking away from that job if one is consistently and continually disrespected. Self-love is not prostituting yourself for money. And what I mean by that is by taking jobs that go against your moral code. So there are some jobs, coming up that was recommended to me when I was a young man, working for defense contractors and working for basically private defense. And that's not my role as an Obatala person. As for, private war and war that the moral lines was very thin. And so I chose not to take that. And I won't do or take things for money that goes against my moral code. And another gem, as I mentioned in the previous devotion, is that there's a song, again, if there's Black folks that are into house music, there's a song again by Blue Six that's called Love Yourself. And the song expressed that one cannot expect other people to respect you and love you more than you love yourself. And it's illustrate these scenarios of individuals going to constant parties, searching for something, and knowing that that party is going to end the same every weekend, on how these events are going to always end the same, and that you're constantly looking for people to impress. But when they go home, nobody's really thinking about you. You have to take time to cherish and respect yourself. You have to love yourself and not expect anybody else to do that. Be confident of where you want to go. Be confident in the guidance that your Orienu is giving you, and that you are a vessel of a deity. And it's not you being arrogant. It's not you, not wanting to listen to other people, but your own blueprint, because that Orienu is your deity. You have to keep going forward. You have to be confident, and you have to respect yourself and know that, you have a mission in life, and not letting anything interfere with you. And sometimes yourself or even your past. Let your past stay in the past and keep moving forward, and drop the vices and do anything you can do to love, cherish, and respect yourself. And I'll say this in closing as we leave, is that I had this experience with this East African sister. She was a doctor, or medical assistant rather, or physician assistant. And she saw my name, and she stated that, do you ever have problems, finding jobs with your name? Excuse me, I'm sorry. This was her mother. This was the mother. So she asked me, do you ever find a hard time finding jobs with your name? And my name, it's an East African. Before my Yoruba name, it's an East African Kamal name. And I said, no, I don't have that problem. Like, I didn't reflect that problem in my mentality, so that wasn't my reality. So I told her no. And so she was saying, my daughter's having a real hard time. She got out of school, good grades, and she's trying to get a job in the medical field. But, she's thinking about changing her name so that she could, so she could be employed. And so I thought to myself that, and she asked my opinion, and I would say, absolutely not. I will not change my lineage. I will not change, and even in her perspective, she has a name that's been passed down by generations and generations. And just to think that you would change that so that white people can consider to accept you is just beyond baffling. That is not self-love to me. Your mind reflects your reality, as above, so below, as we know. And as I stated previously, is that every relationship that you have, every environment that you encounter is a direct reflection of the relationship that you have with yourself. And so again, A lot of times we see a lot of blaming. We see a lot of civil wars within Black folks and Black culture. And that's neither here nor there. I think the most incriminating thing you can do is complain, because it's really bringing attention about something we need to fix within ourselves. So all you have to do is just change your vibration, change your thought pattern consistently, and your reality is going to reflect the emotions, the feelings, and the consistent thought pattern that your aura is conditioned into. That's spirituality, 101. That is the absolute basis. We know, again, as above, so below, on an earth as it is in heaven, as the water reflects the sky, is that your mentality reflects your reality. So the Iwa of the week that you all should, I would recommend incorporating into this week's praxis, is that to recommit yourself to purity, as we stated last week. And it is difficult, and continue to add those EYs of purity into your bank, right? The way that we would eat. And I know sometimes it's some stuff that I know I should not be eating. You know what I'm saying? And that goes against me preserving my body, even though I think I do pretty good. But there's some things that, I need to cut that out. There are some things that I cannot watch because I don't want things getting into my mind, or some music that I just cannot listen to. Just as I stay away from alcohol, so to speak, there are certain type of things that I advocate for myself. So if there's, and not even myself, but my colleagues as a supervisor or a leader, I make sure that justice is done for my subordinates, make sure they're paid right, they have proper pay bands, they're getting the salary that's deserved. So just think about how can you self-advocate for yourself, and how can you truly respect yourself beyond the aesthetic or the sensual side of self-love. And with that is to recommit yourself to your life focus. And us being as Olorisha, we don't do everything, right? I do Obatala stuff, Obatala and Yemu's vibration, that's it. That's the only thing that I can do, and I'm not seeking to do everything. We all have a specific vibration that is contingent upon the deity that you made that marriage or commitment to. So, how are you stepping through as Olokun? Like every day, this is the energy that you are setting yourself into as Yemoja. Like how are you bringing or channeling Yemoja's spirit into your life, and how does that reflect in your life focus? How are you doing that as Shango? Preserving customs and being moving in a regal type of manner. And of course, Ifa, how are you guys being wise counselors, and how are you showing wisdom and relaying that wisdom to the community? So as you're recommitting your life focus, I believe this was an essay from Eji Ogbe from the 256 Eji Ogbe, and it says that one should guard your Ori and Nu just as you will guard a child. So you're really guarding your life purpose. You're really guarding your destination in life. Ignore, I think I said this the last devotion, ignore all negativities, ignore what the naysayers say. You just focus on yourself. Do not people please. Do not do things that you know in your heart is not right, or do things in your heart that you know is, for lack of better words, weak, or pushing your true intention to the side to people please other folks. And I'm not talking about, people in your environment. It could be, your employer. It could be, things in politics. Your local representatives, legal representatives, or whatnot. But do not let other folks' negativity impede on the pureness and the sanctity of one's own life. So before we go, I'm going to get caught up in the chat to be sure I didn't miss any questions. Okay, I'm going to go to Ifa Bola. Go ahead, EI, you can unmute yourself. Caro.
Caro, Baba, this was a wonderful devotion. Thank you so much. I just had a couple of comments that you brought out that I find very important in my life. I'm a physician, I see patients, and I always try to bring the energy of all the Risha and ancestors of myself and my patients to the room for our spiritual guidance. And I'm always looking for the advice I give. How does that apply to me? So that is an important way to move through our lives, that look in the mirror, as you said. And it was interesting because that was one of the gifts that my husband gave to me on our wedding day. The mirror is for us during any problems in our relationship. I plan to use this mirror to look back at myself to see where the problems are in our relationship first. And I think that's an important lesson for all of us to reflect in the mirror as we're moving forward in all of our relationships. So I thank you for this devotion, Madupwe.
Oh, Kotopwe, and thank you for sharing that powerful message, Iya. Most definitely. And I think as Baba Kola mentioned, is that there's no endpoint in like spiritual development. Once you master something, you're moving on to the next one. And we're constantly growing and we're constantly changing. And something that I'll briefly share as well is that years ago, I did marry shortly out of college. And so it came to a point to where it was no longer it was no longer beneficial, and it wasn't functional. And people confide to me for their advice about counseling and divorce, and I know if somebody else would speak to me, I can give them the advice. This is what you should do. This is what you should do. But I had to look in the mirror, knowing that I'm into something that hurts, and knowing to something that this is not good for me. And the hardest thing was to actually take the advice that I know that I give other people. Like, what would I tell somebody else to do? And if I'm not taking my own advice, then I'm not, suitable to lead. So, I went to our confos, I went to Babalaos, I divined, I saw counselors, and I did everything to be sure that, once one stepped away, that I have done everything to keep it together. And it was a blessing, because you can't, if someone's putting money into your hand, you can't receive it with a closed hand. That was something that had to close in order to receive, the beautiful blessings of the future. But in short, I 100% agree that, as real accountable spiritualists, is that we're always checking ourselves and we're always holding ourselves accountable, more so than what we hold to others. So thank you so much for that. And I really appreciate you sharing. And I'm catching up in the chat. Thank you, Iya Akunfumike. Self-love is believing in your own power and abilities. Self-love is respecting yourself first and foremost and being a person of integrity. Absolutely. And yes, Iya Solanji, the synchronicities, you got certified as a self-care and boundaries coach. And it's super important to love yourself and have boundaries. Absolutely. So before we go, are there any more questions? All right. Thank you all for joining us for devotion today. When I do pick up, we'll pick up again on Sheshifun, on how we're moving forward in purity and being pure, such as having these types of values. It brings all of the E-ray to our lives. And as we'll end on, I believe this is Son Mason. No, don't quote me on the 256. But towards the end of the essay, it states that blessings are the only thing that come from worshiping Obatala, or that only good things can come to you by having this type of pure mind, pure body. And so it's not a type of endeavor that won't have any fruitful returns. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Iyasalanji. I got it. And I know I owe some of you a couple of emails, and I'll be in contact soon. Have Have a great week. Have a good Sunday. Ariel Odabo.